That one was Speliake Dixon and Seamless Spineless Fubara. Here is the view of one of, his name is Jamil, right? One of MK Abiola's children, the same guy who said Bukuwari was actually implementing his father's policy. I don't know, some of you will remember that. MK Abiola's son said Bukuwari was implementing his father's policy for Nigeria, that what Bukuwari was doing is what is what his father would have done. I don't know, maybe I'm mixing them up. Maybe he said that about Tinubu or about Bukuwari. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So here, his own position and gratefulness to Nigeria for the continued recognition of his father and others, a contribution to democracy or whatever. June 12.
Instead of doing all of this, let me just, take whatever I can take from this country and let me go abroad.
Tell me your personal experience. Your mother was killed in the struggle. You lost your father for several years in the struggle. He was absent because he was fighting for that mandate. What was it like? How disruptive was that for your life?
It was very disruptive, and I just thank God, that God has said in the Quran that La yukallif la nafsan illa wus'aha, meaning that if somebody cannot bear something, God will not give it to the person. So God gave me that experience because God knows I can bear it. And when that happened, as God would have it, I've always been learning languages, but between the time my father was locked up and the time he died, I've learned almost 7 languages. So that was like my own sanctuary, my own getaway. And I now became perfect in those languages. So you see, whenever something happens, God will always give you a solution. But there are a lot of people that might have run mad, they might have committed suicide. So I've now been elevated above, not just even languages now. I'm looking at the world now as it's just a joke. As in, like, we're here temporarily and we will leave. So at this point, the world doesn't really mean
How
so much.
old were you when your father died?
When my father died, I was like 22. But when my mother died, I was like 19. But the world doesn't mean anything to me now because I look at it like God has told us that somebody that dies the way they died for a good cause is going to go to heaven. And God has also told us that where those people are going to end up is better than whatever this world has to offer. So at the end of the day, where my father and my mother are right now is better than anything in this world put together. As a matter of fact, the toilet where they stay is even where kings will want to even stay in this world in comparison. So I've gone beyond looking at this world as anything, and that is the beauty of it. So
whatever the struggles were impacted on your family, and the family was not the same. I remember that you and your siblings were literally taken out of the country, isn't it?
We were not even in the country, and like the younger ones, the 2 of them were taken out of the country. So we were more or less on our own, at the end of the day. I mean, of course, my mother has a wonderful family. She has sisters and all that, but it's not the same. Once you lose your parents, you're on your own because everybody has their own family. You can't be a nuisance, you can't be a liability to anyone. So we had to grow up very, very fast. And once you lose your childhood, you lose it forever. So these are things that can never change. But we, at this point, we are not going to start crying over spilled milk and thinking about what has happened in the past. The good thing about it is that we've moved on. None of us have run mad. None of us are crazy. So, but it was the most terrible thing. I would not wish my enemy to even have that kind of experience because...
Exactly. Well, let's leave Abiola and his family, Tinubu and his own co-travelers as well, just for a moment, and go to the streets where Omoyele Sowore, as the leader of the Take It Back, mobilized dissatisfied Nigerians to the streets to demand for a better Nigeria and all of that. So I put all of their protested today, right? I put them in a clip, starting with when those in Ondo came under the attack of the APC thugs, in which, whereas you all know now, it's like not moved, and it was even like mobilized to get these supposed thugs neutralized in that clip. You had them in a Kurudu, you had this in a Keja Ojota, from Kaduna, Kano, think a part of Sokoto, Abuja, and then I have the part of Oshogbo. Just people from everywhere, where everyone, unfortunately, they really couldn't put any form of intimidating crowd. That is why it seems, right, that Tinubu and his gang just continue to ignore the legitimate and genuine call for a better country by these guys. Don't acknowledge them. Usually they will bring out their policemen and all that, but today they didn't see it that way. So let's go to that street from Akure to Ikorodu, into Kano, and to other places. It's a long watch. All right, sit back.
I'll tell you that I know sufficiently about the police now.
So right now I'm in Ogun State, and coming from Lagos, this is Agbado.
I've mixed them together. I apologize, okay? So it was meant to be, okay. I apologize. So give me a sec. While I put that back up, right? Here is another conversation. And this time it was Soludo delivering a speech, right? Let's take that quickly. I'll be back in a minute. Sorry, not in a minute. I'll be back soon.
After graduation, I was working at La Pal House at Coopers and Library. Going through the traffic, and then there was no Third Mainland Bridge. And then going through the traffic and getting down to the island every day, or going through Oshodi, where you need to have a human traffic. You need to ask somebody to step out so you can put your feet. And Lagos of today, there is something to appreciate, that we have come a long way, albeit that there is still a long way to go. Second, I would disappoint many who would expect me to comment on the economy. I'll start by disappointing Pastor Oyemade. Or to use this forum to offer another, quote, blueprint for economic reforms. I have access to the federal government to offer my advice, if any, and this platform cannot serve the purpose. But let's be clear, and I'm not shy to say this, that the audacious structural reforms embarked upon by the current administration of His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu GCFR have rescued the economy from the tipping point. The endorsements by the World Bank, the IMF, the London Financial Times, rating agencies such as Fitch, Moody's, etc., in my view, are well-deserved. Of course, many people know that I made a living criticizing the World Bank and the IMF. I made quite tons of money criticizing even books, which one of my books was, they told me at the World Bank bookshop, it was their bestseller at some point. As governor of Anambra, I have even rejected a World Bank loan because of the terms. But on the matter of the trajectory of the current economic reforms, the World Bank and others, in my view, are largely right. Funny enough, when these institutions criticize the government, some people use them as validation of their own criticisms. But when the same institutions give a positive report, they are derided as, quote, neoliberal, out-of-touch institutions. In 2023, I had described the state of the economy when this government assumed office as akin to a standing dead horse. And public finance was about to tip from insolvency, with potential catastrophic consequences, including possible mass retrenchment of workers and or arrears of salaries and pension. You see, when the previous administration passed the 2023 budget that had a clause that subsidies will end by end of June, it was an indication we had reached the end. You could go no further. There's a limit to which you can continue to print money, to do business. And the consequences of hyper or high inflation were just predictable. I'm one of those who raised the alarms at some point, and at some point I had to say to the regime then with the then governor of Central Bank. And I'm happy to say this publicly. In one session, coming back to rule of law, I had said to them that this printing of money, illegally printing of naira, if the CBN Act, the provisions were obeyed, there was no time that you could have had more than 500 billion standing as ways and means. None. But they were obdurately, illegally printing money, went to 1 trillion, 2 trillion, 10 trillion, 12 trillion. That was when I said at a meeting, Governor, obey the law or amend the law. The way you are going was tipping the economy into the Atlantic Ocean. And what he said then, the response was, come and imprison me. I am helping the country. I knew that that particular act of printing money, and they printed up to 20-something trillion and poured into the system, and you expect the exchange rate to remain the same, inflation to remain the same, and so on and so forth. That's a joke. Elementary economics tells us that that was the recipe for disaster. And we met it. So when I make the point that we had, if you didn't do the kind of, subsidy removal and all of those things that had to, or dealing with the exchange rate, no.
Nuisance Lele. Nuisance Lele.
These guys are so dishonest, right? That it makes my stomach turns. I mean, come on, man. When Bokwari was printing money, indeed, at the time when Bokwari was printing money, Soludo was just, when Bokwari was rounding up, Soludo was just coming in. And there was never a time where he is saying now that I can say it in public. Now that means he's telling us that I said it in private. Soludo was praising Bokwari. It all sounds like it is yesterday. The money Bokwari printed, they shared the money to all these states. They lied then that they were not taking loans and all of that, right? However, they were printing money too. Ways and means, so illegal. But who are those who shared the money? $50 billion in 8 years. Soludo collected too, right? But do you know something? Right now, Tinubu has printed more than 25 trillion naira pumped into that system. Devalued your currency, claimed to have saved you by removing subsidy. The same lie that Soludo himself is aware of, but just repeat it. Be in their good book, maybe you can keep power. The moment Tinubu no longer has power anymore, somebody like Soludo and others, they will come back and say, oh, he made it worse. But they can't say that right now. They are watching everything and they are telling themselves he took a bold step. But they are lying to themselves. Today, in 2 years, Tinubu has printed more than what Bokwari printed in 6 years. In 2 years. Nobody can even tell. You can't even look into their book. But these guys are falsifying, falsifying figures and all that, publishing them online. And then you'll be asking yourself, if this number is true, people should be feeling that in their lives. They say, I know they can't feel it now. They will feel it later. Feeling the good policy of Tinubu is considered as is coming. That means it's coming. You have to wait for it. You're asking for it now is because you don't understand the economy. You don't understand economics. You don't understand this. They will kind of gaslight you. All of that stuff he said there, they're all lies. I'm sorry, I couldn't continue listening to him. But yeah, who is going to rope them? Who is going to hold them when they lie? So I saw this in a state though, in Oka. They call it Medical City, I think it's called Medical City. It's supposed to be a settlement built by the same Soludo, right? For doctors, I think. So it is called Medical City in Oka. So it's meant to be a place where all the medical workers or medical staff, they have their own quarters, they have their own rooms and all that. And they are just going to be there while, structures are being mounted there. Something about them in Nigeria is that they are all good in this kind of mountain, structure. So, you see, now to come equip these massive buildings and all these buildings, to equip them with the wall. You see some of them, when you open them up, they are empty. And wherever they decide to actually even equip them, the problem is maintenance. You go back there a few years later, everything is in. So they are very good though. They will build this, build that quickly. Pour charcoal for ground, column road, put a chalk in the middle, make it look like road and all that. Go back there in 5 years when that person is, even when that person is still in power, you'll be like, everything, this whole thing, they just build, don't they tear apart? Yeah. So, but we'll leave that one for now. All right, let's go to that street. I'm still trying to, manage my time, even though I started late. It's because I've already prepared all this stuff. Right? If I didn't deliver them tonight, I'm just going to delete all of them because tomorrow, right? Nigeria is a place. Tomorrow is another thing. As you wake up like this, you are walking by. You're walking up by, different kind of stories. Some of them you will not be able to ignore. So bear with me. All right. So let's go back to the Take It Backers on the streets demanding for a better Nigeria. From Kolu, doesn't give a shit.
Wait.
No.
Malo. Okay. Malo, move. No, I captured them. Don't run, Kegba. Sorry. No, let's side. So we just witnessed thugs and policemen working together in Ondo State to attack pro-democracy activists at a peaceful protest. We saw them, and we saw the police working with them while they were beating people up. It was very, very sad. I hope you were watching it. Today is supposed to be June 12th.